Today we will be presenting on the topic of individual differences in emotion regulation. We will begin by providing an overview of what emotion regulation is. We will then outline relevant theories, provide and analyze empirical evidence, and present a case study on this topic.
Emotional regulation is the mental and behavior process by which people influence their own feelings and the feelings of other people. Generally, it is necessary in all phases of life and important for effective communication, promoting inner harmony and happiness, avoiding conflict, and improving relationships. An organization's awareness of individual differences is essential because homogeneity is no longer effective in managing the emotions of different employees. For example, if a customer at a cafe wanted a new coffee because theirs was too cold, some baristas may suppress their frustration at the situation and make a new coffee, while others may reappraise their situation, allowing them to realize that making a new coffee is not a big deal. In an effective workplace, the responsibility for emotional regulation goes beyond the individual, and the organization assumes this responsibility.
Within literature, numerous theories have been developed in order to explain emotional regulation. One theory, developed by James Gross, is the process model. This model is built upon the modal model of emotion, which schematically theorizes emotions into a sequence of 4 components. These are situation, attention, appraisal, and response. The process model builds upon this framework and describes the potential for emotion regulation at 5 different phases. This model is advantageous in that it clearly breaks down how emotions are regulated. However, it does not account for individual differences and is limited in its adaptability. In an attempt to overcome these limitations, several models have extended the process model even further. For example, the computational model uses both quantitative and qualitative measures to operationalize and account for individual circumstances. This model, however, is very complex in its design, and despite being theoretically sound, it seems unfeasible to practically apply in organizations. We have therefore chosen Goleman's theory of emotional intelligence, as it accounts for individual differences in emotion regulation. This theory is relatively simple in its design. It is highly valuable in its practicality.
Goleman defines emotional intelligence as the capacity to recognize our own feelings and the feelings of others, with the purpose of motivating ourselves and managing emotions in ourselves and in our relationships. After identifying 5 key components of emotional intelligence as self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills, he categorized them into 4 domains to create a flowchart which starts with the individual and stems out to others. Self-awareness is the ability for an individual to recognize their own emotions and how they affect their thoughts and behaviors. Once an individual is self-aware, they can begin the self-management and social awareness phases. Self-management involves self-regulation, adaptation, and motivation. Self-awareness involves empathy and the ability to understand others' feelings, needs, and concerns. Once these domains are fulfilled, an individual is able to concern themselves with relationship management. This phase is ultimately summarized as social skills, and is heavily categorized by outward signs of emotional intelligence, such as leadership and teamwork. According to Goleman's theory, a strong emotional intelligence is categorized as the effective progression through all 4 of these stages. The practical application of this theory will now be shown through the analysis of empirical evidence.
A study from the Journal of Applied Social Psychology have examined individual differences in emotional regulation through surveying 605 employees of a hospice facility. While these surveys are based on self-report, they are highly credible as the scaling used in survey have been used in many psychologists in many areas. The results of these studies indicate that in work contexts which require positive interpersonal interaction, positive emotion are associated with appraisal, better performance, and higher levels of job satisfaction. Negative emotion were heavily associated with low levels of appraisal and job satisfaction. This correlates heavily with Goleman's theories as it links self-regulation with self and relationship management, suggesting that the effective progression through these phases indicates an increase in positivity, performance, and satisfaction. Within organizations, this would lead to willingness to work, drive to succeed, and adaptability to work environment. Another article in the Asia-Pacific Journal of Management suggests that within group work, the group members' perception for emergent leadership are associated with emotional stability. This indicates that emotion regulation can act as a mediator between self-emotion and work competencies, such as leadership. This also supports Goleman's theories as the self-component affects the group as a whole. Overall, there is strong evidence to support the practical viability of Goleman's theory in that individuals who possess a high level of emotional intelligence are associated with excellent individual job performance.
We will now present and examine a case study in order to demonstrate emotion regulation in a practical setting, comparing this to Goleman's theory of emotional intelligence. Through a team member, we have created a case study on Woolworths Supermarket in Mount Baker. Choosing this case study as after the individual has had 3 years of experience within the organisation, we were able to obtain a more detailed and informative understanding of the practices that occur within the workplace. The primary information presented will enable a greater, more holistic insight into individual differences in emotional regulation within work environments compared to secondary sources available online. One method that Woolworths undertakes in order to assess emotional regulation in the store is the initiative of the mystery shopper. This involves an external member of the public who assesses the store not only on physical attributes such as cleanliness, but also on how employees serve customers. Employees are rated on emotional behaviours such as smiling and willingness to help customers, encouraging employees to maintain consistent friendliness and helpfulness. This relates to Goleman's idea of self-awareness in that employees are encouraged to regulate their emotions and examine their behaviours. In October of 2015, the Mount Baker South Australia team achieved a score of 48 in this initiative. This not only made the managers self-aware but also ensured that they become socially aware of their employees. Managers then encourage their employees to utilise their emotional intelligence in their work in order to improve their job performance. In January of 2016, the South Australia team received a score of 100% in this task, demonstrating the significant impact of emotional intelligence for both managers and workers. The score further encouraged workers to continue working hard in order to maintain the status, remain highly regarded by the managerial staff, and have a higher sense of pride in their store. In this instance, the emotional intelligence began with the manager, who then encouraged their staff. The staff members were then encouraged to utilise their emotional intelligence in order to become aware of their own and their customers' emotions and improve performance. Another way Woolworths manages emotion regulation within the store is through consistent overseeing by supervisors, regularly checking with staff to make sure they are conveying positive emotions to customers and other staff members. Similarly to the Mystery Shopper initiative, this aims to ensure that employees are made self-aware in order to work cohesively, improve interpersonal communications and relationships. This in turn can improve employee well-being and stabilise emotional regulation, not just through surface acting. The necessity of emotional regulation in the workplace is paramount, as emotional contagion can be very high in this line of work. If customers liken negative emotions from staff, they may prevent themselves from returning to the store. Evidently, Woolworths utilises Goleman's emotional intelligence concepts in order to ensure that their employees remain aware so that they regulate their emotions effectively. Woolworths could use the idea of emotional intelligence more effectively if they apply it to their hiring process. If they were to undertake psychometric tests which measure EI on their possible employees, hires would be able to ensure that people they are hiring have the capacity to regulate their emotions effectively and perform highly within their workplace.
Based upon the presented information, we would suggest that the best practice for organizations to undertake in order to manage individual differences in emotion regulation would be to implement emotional intelligence ideals into both the hiring processes and the work itself. As mentioned, psychometric testing before hiring candidates can assure increased worker productivity and reduce turnover rates. We would also suggest that applying the idea of being watched would ensure that employees remain self-aware, as demonstrated through the Woolworths case study. Furthermore, organizations could include workshops consisting of programs such as team-building exercises in order to strengthen employee relationships by developing social and empathy skills. Utilizing AI in the workplace can increase productivity, reduce conflict, ensure staff is appropriate for the job, and increase overall profits of the organization. In saying this, however, some organizations may not be able to apply these concepts due to limitations, such as insufficient funding and inapplicability to certain jobs. For example, technical roles require much less AI in comparison to managerial roles. A company must therefore balance the strengths and weaknesses of Goleman's theory before using emotional intelligence to account for individual differences in emotion regulation. Overall, emotion regulation has proven to be an extremely important concept for the success of organizations. We have noted several theories which aim to explore these concepts, but through the analysis of empirical evidence and the case study, have concluded that Goleman's theory of emotional intelligence proves to be effective both theoretically and practically. A key point presented is the importance of self-awareness in order to ensure self-management, social awareness, and resultantly, relationship management. These ideals enable job satisfaction, high levels of performance, effective emotion regulation, and overall prove to be extremely beneficial for organizations. We encourage organizations to pursue the exploration of emotional intelligence in order to account for the individual differences in emotion regulation. We hope you have enjoyed this presentation. Thank you.